I call to order the Westlake City Schools regular board meeting for Monday, September 28th, 2020. Roll call.
Kraft.
Here.
Stoll.
Here.
Fanukin.
Here.
Lozinski.
Here.
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 If you would, join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Welcome to everyone here and those that may be joining us online. Thanks for joining us today. Is there a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? Roll call.
Lozinski.
Yes.
Fanukin.
Yes.
Kraft.
Yes.
Here not.
Yes.
Stoll.
Yes.
Motion carries.
We do offer an opportunity for a hearing of the public, and seeing no one here with us, we're going to move to an approval of the minutes. We've all had an opportunity to see the meeting minutes from August the 10th as well as August the 24th. All of those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All of those not in favor say no. Minutes are approved. At this time, we'll move to formative reports and recognitions, and I'll turn it over to Superintendent Dr. Goggin.
Great, thank you.
You bet.
I have some items that I would like to cover this evening. And as you know, we are in a hybrid model, meeting in person. And it's interesting just watching us grow, watching it start from being very fearful and how are we going to do this? And I still think there's a sense of how are we going to do this? What I'm hearing for the most part is it's getting easier. They're probably dealing with less technical issues and more pedagogical issues.
Sure.
And so at least what I'm getting, and so sometimes we judge on which problems we're dealing with now. So before, there are some school districts still trying to figure out how we can get in, when are we going to get in, and have some sort of in-person. We've been doing the in-person, but it's a different in-person. It's an in-person where you could have students in front of you, and you're teaching to the students in front of you, and you can have a camera, and you're teaching to students at home as well. So it's being able to find that balance and how you stay connected with the students at home. One of the things that we're hearing sometimes is when teachers say they find themselves spending more attention to the screen type of thing as opposed to less there. So I think teachers are getting used to it, students are getting used to it, and that's where we are with it. But the big question that we ended up getting is every time when we were in virtual, the big question is when are we going to at least come in hybrid? And then now that we're in hybrid, then the next question is, okay, now when are we going to go on? And so one of the things that we're really trying to do is we're still following science. We're following cases. We're following what's going on. Not only, but what's nice now is we have a couple more data points that we didn't have before. So originally we were just going by Cuyahoga County, where we said, where's the county? What's going on? What color are we in? What's happening? And now the county has changed how they're reporting to where they actually, if you look at the reports, they will tell you exactly how many cases were in your community. So in 44145, we can see, I think it's around 25 or 30 over the past few weeks. We can see how many cases are happening in our county and within our community. And now that we are in school, we can actually track what type of cases are we seeing in our buildings and in our district. So one of the things that we're really trying to do is be as transparent as humanly possible. And I think that's really what we're doing because, I think it's how more transparent you can be where we're actually broadcasting from our classrooms during the day, right? I mean, that's pretty much as transparent as you can be. And then additionally, when we look at our cases and our quarantines, the Board of Health recommended that you put some of the dashboard on there, but it wasn't something that was mandatory. We did it. And Todd, if you can show me the dashboard of the quarantines and cases, that would be great. So if you go on our COVID webpage. We have on the top of our website, it says COVID-19 information. That particular graphic that Mr. Hopkins is showing it's broken down with students and staff. So students are on the left, staff is on the right. This is the data from last week, which we update every Friday is when we'll do that. And so that first one where you see the 0, those are the positive or presumed positive student cases. So those are the students who have either tested positive or you'll have the doctor sometimes, so for example, you'll have the doctor who will say, well, your sibling had it, and you're showing the same symptoms as your sibling, so we are going to assume you have it. We're not going to test you. We're not going to bring you in and have you tested. You know, your spouse had it, your kid had it, whatever it is, you're showing the same symptoms, you are a presumed positive. So on the left-hand side, we have presumed positive or tested positive students. And then right next to it where the 9 is, those are quarantined. So that could be a student who came into contact with some kids who came home from college who had it. Some kids who came in contact with a parent who had tested positive. So they would then have to go into quarantine. And then to the right is where the staff. So then when you look at the number of presumed positive or positive test cases as well as quarantine. So that's what we had last week, and we can go back through the other weeks. But the point is we want to show this in particular, and one of the things that I want to point out is if there was, let's say on the student side, it was 2 and then 9, okay, let's say the 0 was a 2. And so there were 2 presumed positive or positive, and then there were 9 in quarantine or isolation. It's not 11 people. Those 2 people who tested positive or who were presumed positive are also in either the quarantine or isolated column, okay? So they would be included in both of those categories as well, so you shouldn't add them up and say, oh, they have 11. The reason for it is because quarantine, the term that term is used when somebody comes into contact with a direct contact with, close contact actually, with someone who has tested positive or presumed positive. Isolation is the person who is the positive case. So you're isolated if you have COVID, you're quarantined if you are in close contact with somebody who's there. So that's what that is. Now, but that's also a very general way to look at it. Mr. Hopkins, if you can click on the other one too, please. So we even went a step further in our reporting, and I'm going to click on this myself so I can look at it from here. So you can't see that. So what it is, we don't add any quarantines to this. All right. So this report is very simply just the people who either tested positive or presumed positive per building for each week. Now, last week was a good week for us. All right. So when you look at last week, we didn't have any student cases or staff cases in any buildings last week. So, you can look at the quarantines and say, wow, there's 9 listed there, but then when you actually look at it and break it out per building, we didn't have any cases. Now, I think that may have changed already for this week, and so by the end of the week, we'll be able to have a tally there. But that's one of the things that we want to do. Now, the reason I point that out when I start to talk about all in is, while we are able to, like I mentioned before, we can look at the county color code system, we could look at the number of cases in the county, we can look at the number of cases within Westlake, and we can look at the number of cases even within our buildings. And that's one of the things that we're doing and we're sharing. So every Friday, we are posting this, and anybody who wants to click on it can click on it and look at it. Because I think this information is important, because it's one thing to just have a conversation and say, I think on October, fill in the blank, we're going to go back in and we're going to be all in. And the question is, well, how'd you make that decision? I don't know, I just picked, it's near Halloween and I like Halloween and I think I'm just going to do it at that time. Kids will be wearing masks anyway. But I think it's one, we don't do that. And so one of the things that we're really trying to do is to begin to track the information and see, you know, are there certain parts of the school district where we're seeing more cases or less cases? And then how do we build that plan together so that we can safely come back and bring everybody back into school? So I'm very hesitant, just like when we were in summer, I was very hesitant to say, you know, for the first quarter or for the first semester, we're going to go virtual, and that's just how it is, because I think that kind of sells us short, and I don't think it's the way that I would prefer moving forward in any type of transition, both, you know, for those who want to come back or those who are concerned with coming back. We want to make sure that when we do that, it makes sense. So that's what I want to show you in regard to gathering this particular data. Any questions on that before I move on? No? So I wrote down one more point that I would like to, and knock on wood with this one, is one of the things that I shared with the staff and I shared with the families is this. We have our protocols in place because as you look at our dashboards and you look at the previous weeks, you'll see that we do have students and staff who have been infected with COVID, and we're going to. And one of the points that I wanted to make is when you take our students and our staff and you add that total up, it's approaching 4,000 people who in a weekly span come into our buildings. And just looking at it statistically, when you have that many people coming through your buildings, some of those people will have COVID. Now, it's probably less because I didn't account for the 25%, so it's about 3,500, you know. But when you look at something like that, when you have that many people coming through, people are going to walk in your buildings infected with COVID, which is why we've designed our protocols the way we have. And the definition of a close contact is someone who is within 6 feet within 10 feet of another person. Let me rewind. 6 feet for 10 minutes, 10 to 15 minutes. So if you're within 6 feet of somebody for 10 to 15 minutes, you are considered a close contact. With the way that we have designed our classrooms right now, we can have someone in a classroom who will not be a close contact.
It's going to be tough to do, right?
It's going to be hard to actually be a close contact, which the point is, and I spoke with Kiwanis this past week, and there's some folks in Kiwanis who are very, very concerned about community spread, you know, and about the schools being a place that is the super spreader to generate it and then pass it on through the rest of the community. And you know, they were great to talk to, and I think they really appreciated that we've designed our building so that as someone, we may be a person who, an organization that receives folks who may have COVID because they're coming to school or they're coming to work, but we're trying really hard not to be that place where it's transmitted. And I don't know if that makes sense, but that's kind of the design we have, which is why I do think it's very important to monitor this data. And as we look to make the decision of coming back all in, it needs to be based on what? And then the next part of it is going to be the conversation about when, like University Hospital said, as they did their webinar with us, when you get rid of a barrier, you need to increase another one. So, you know, if I'm going to take my mask off, I should increase the distance. I should be more than 6 feet because I eliminated one barrier. I should add another one. So if we are going to eliminate the barrier of distance, then the question is, what barrier are we going to increase to make sure that we're able to keep that transmission level down? So those are a lot of the things that we need to consider as we move forward with this. Just wanted to share that with you. Anything else?
I think about the, in some cases, the fear or the uncertainty from staff, from families, and we have heard some of that as well. And it appears to us, I know that our email inboxes have not been as full, but are you getting a feeling, say, from staff and from families that their comfort level is increasing as we move along?
So I think if you were to, all right, and here's the analogy that I use. And I don't know if it's a good one, but it's mine and I own it. So I look at it like this. So I go across the district and I can talk to students and I can talk to staff. And I will tell you that when you talk to our staff, they want the kids. They're said, you know what, I want my kids back, is what they're saying. They like the idea of having their kids back and not having to teach in 2 different places and do these type of things. They want their kids back. But then when it comes to the reality of it, and you say, well, okay, then let's bring them back. And then they start to visualize this full classroom with, 3 feet, 4 feet in between kids. That stresses people out. And I say it's kind of like me. I love planning a vacation, but I hate flying. So I look forward to the vacation, but when the time comes that I have to get on the plane, it makes me really nervous. So I think it's also building that comfort level for people to understand that the protocols really will work. And I think people are starting to get that. But I think that next step of saying, okay, the protocols are working. Look, we're not having any cases. This is fantastic. And then you're going to have some people say, well, wait a minute. It's working. Why are you changing this when it's working? So we need to be able to show that this will work. And then what is the plan? When would we do it? And how would we do it safely? I think it's very important to be able to build that.
Thank you.
Last thing I want to mention is Dover campus. We are on version 4. We're on
8.
On 8? Okay, well, are there 4 more I haven't seen? No, I'm kidding. But no, we've been going through multiple versions. This really has been a nice process. I think Dave and the engineers and the architects have been taking a good amount of feedback from folks. And we do want to listen to that input because this has been something that's been a concern in the city of Westlake for a long, long time. And we want to make sure that when we do it, we get it right. But then we also have to do it under a budget because we do have some other projects we would like to get done as well. But I'm happy with our latest version that came out. And we will kind of vet through that internally a bit before we really release that publicly. The other part is while, we cross our fingers and hope that it's going to be more cost effective, we're trying to find that balance between the budget and the efficiency of the layout. And we're hopeful that this particular one will reduce it. But, when you look at the raising of a building and as well as this thing, it's working on the traffic layout, we're still concerned about the cost coming in. So when we get that information, we'll definitely share it out. But that's where we are with that. And other than my agenda items, which I'll wait for, that would be my report, but I can field any questions if the board has it.
Questions for Dr. Goggin? If I may, when it comes to the Dover campus, I've had the opportunity to join Mr. Kosovar in his meetings with the public. And something that we all know is that Mr. Kosovar does an excellent job at many, many things. And certainly one of those things is providing that forum for citizens of Westlake to come and speak to him and to work on such projects. And he receives many compliments, as he should, and he'll receive one from the board. Thank you for all your work on this project and your hard work always and all the things you do for the city of Westlake. So thank you. If I may, I'm going to move on to the treasurer's report. Mr. Hopkins.
Thank you, Mr. President. I wanted to touch real quick tonight about the collection rate. It's not often we really talk about the collection rate. The collection rate is, taxes that are being collected throughout the community. As the county sends out the tax bill, as residents here, each of you get that tax bill, and as those are paid, the county will pass it along to us, usually around 3 times per half. So we normally will get 2 advances and then what's called a settlement. And the settlement is essentially, what it sounds like, where they settle up on what was actually collected. There are some deductions that we have that we pay to the county for them collecting the taxes, as well as some land bank, different things of that nature. But ultimately, we look at how much we collect overall and what percentage it is. So, the good news is we've gotten our settlement, and in reviewing it from year over year, it's about exactly the same. Okay, a little bit off. I think it was $50,000-$70,000 off out of 21 million, 22 million in general fund. Really, 50 to 70,000 is pretty good. Now there are some changes within that. We've seen some differences in maybe the amount collected in residential compared to residential appears to be a little lower and commercial is a little higher. So that'll play into our collection rate. But overall, it looks fairly stable from where it was the year before. where we were certified right between 96 and 97%. So I expect that in December, typically, they'll issue the new collection rate based on a year's worth of data. I expect it to be about in that similar rate. So that is good. We were expecting right around, for half of the year on our general fund, we were expecting right around $21 million, and we're right in that range. So right now, I'm comfortable where we're at with our tax collections. I'm cautiously optimistic. Okay, if there is a bad note on it, the payment we received, I think it is coming on the last day of the month, so it'll be coming on Wednesday. Normally, we would have gotten the settlement in August. So the county is, maybe they're a little behind on their collections, or people have been a little behind on their collections, and the county has just held off on paying it out to school districts and cities that collect property. So I'm cautiously optimistic. I think we're in a good place right now, but we are closely monitoring that. We do expect, overall, between the reimbursements we get from the state as well as local tax collections, we're about $46 million, somewhere in that range, 46, 47 million for our tax collections is what considered. So, even, several $100,000 or $1 million will have a significant impact on us. So we are watching that, but I just wanted to say that it is looking good right now.
Thank you.
Other than that, I can actually just go into my recommendations if that's so please.
Any questions at this time for Mr. Hopkins?
No, thank you for the information on the collection rate.
What's that?
Thank you for the update on the collection rate.
Certainly. Yeah, and again, it's one of those that we're trying to watch very closely. We have no impact on the collection rate. It's truly based on residents and business owners paying the property taxes. But, I am cautiously optimistic as we continue through this.
That's impressive.
It is.
Yeah.
Moving forward, I've got a handful of recommendations before the board tonight. The first one, 4A, is a resolution to approve FY21 temporary appropriations. So remember, Mrs. Pernot was very kind and pointed out we had a couple postage items that were still broken down by the 4 elementaries, or 3 of the 4 old elementaries. That will be rolled up and combined into the one account for our new elementary. But it is, we have thousands of account numbers on there. We break down our budgets. I will say, as we look at our discretionary spending, okay, our discretionary spending is typically our 400s, 500s, and 600s. That's your purchase services, your supplies and materials, and your equipment. I've asked each of our budget managers, each of our administrators, to reduce their discretionary spending by 20%. So, this is certainly not an easy task for them, and I appreciate the work that each of them have put into this. And there is certain situations where, we may, I will work with them, and we will come back to the board to increase appropriations in certain areas. An example I'll use is Mr. Kosvar is here. His budget includes what we spend on electricity in the district. It's difficult for us to ask, hey, cut 20% on electricity. If we can, let's work on it. But it's difficult to do that, especially now as we're even looking at our new elementary, which is climate control, which we did not have, or we had limited climate control at the 4 elementary. So there are some areas that we may not be able to live up to that 20%. That 20% is really based off of what the rest of the state has done. Where the state agencies were asked by Governor DeWine to cut back on their budgets through the pandemic at a 20% mark. we're trying to follow through with that as well. Part of that is we are taking a reduction in our state revenue for that we receive for the school district. So our foundation payments have been reduced. We're looking to offset those costs through our discretionary spending. Hopefully, we can do that, but there are some areas that I know, being a realist, it's just not going to happen, but we're going to work through that. So I appreciate the work that each of our administrators, budget managers have done putting together this budget that the board can see here tonight. I thank each of them, and we will keep the board apprised of any changes, of course, that we would make throughout the year as necessary. 4C.
Mr. Hopkins?
To transfer funds.
Question?
Yes, sir.
There's an issue with the audio. It's hard for
We've
people.
been trying to, it's a little
Okay.
bit of
There's-
popping noise.
yeah.
We've been trying to work through that.
Okay.
I have one question on the temporary
Yep.
appropriation. Down in the proprietary, it says Rotary. The Rotary Fund,
Rotary, it says Rotary, that's a description by the state. I believe that's 011, 011 fund, is that correct?
yes.
That's where we utilize Project Link, is the main expense out of that account.
Okay. So it has nothing to do with
It has nothing to do
Rotarians?
with Rotary International.
Okay, okay,
No, it's just a fund name that the state is given.
okay. Thank you.
I believe we were on 4C. 4C is a resolution to transfer funds. This is the $10,000 that we pay to the city for the pool agreement. I have attached the lease for the board to review in board docs. We do have, this would be one of the 3 last payments that we have on this lease. I will caution the board that the lease agreement, I know some have expressed to me in the past that it was solely for the diving well. The lease agreement doesn't read like that. The lease agreement is for the use of the pool for the swim teams. So I'm sure we would look at renegotiating that lease agreement with the city so that we can continue to use the pool for our swim teams, our boys and girls swim teams. And we would look probably to start that process in about a year. That would leave a year left on the lease, and we would do that as we work through the final year of the agreement. We have 4D. 4D is a then and now certificates. We have a handful of then and now certificates. I'll point out a couple of them there. Some of them are for special ed services that started earlier than a PO was in place. Some of them, an example is Parma Movers. We have utilized Parma Movers to move equipment throughout our buildings as we were preparing for a hybrid learning environment here in the district. So we removed some desks or tables from classrooms. I believe we brought some desks over from the old elementary to use in classrooms instead of tables. So we weren't able to do that with our internal staff. We did a contract with Parma Movers in order to make that happen before the school year started. Moving on to 4E, we have some purpose statements. These are typical budgets that we put together for each of our activity funds. Obviously, the big elephant in the room on this one this year is our athletic fund. So our 300 athletic fund estimated revenue, Mr. Cipollone obviously for good reason has significantly reduced it from where we normally would have revenue. I believe the board is fully aware we have limited capacity that we're allowed to have at our facilities. Significantly reduced capacity. I was at the game the other night with Dr. Goggin, and at some point it's almost a little eerie because it's just not the same crowds that you would have on a Friday night football type program. So revenue's way down. We still have expenses though. And we have some money in the 300 fund. I fully expect, unless things would change with the pandemic and the rules allowing spectators, I fully expect to come to the board along with Mr. Cipollone and look for the board to help fund the athletic fund. This athletic fund is used for, not necessarily for paying for coaches, general fund already does that. This is used for the other parts of our sports program. It could be the footballs or basketballs, baseballs, volleyballs, things of that nature that we buy each year. It could be some equipment that we needed, different things of that nature. Our booster program has been very, very good to the district, and they help support a lot of the costs, such as jerseys or uniforms. But there are other costs that are, less glamorous costs that need to be paid each year, and that's where we have, we do through this athletic fund, which is funded. Also, another big expense is the refereeing, umpires and refs for each of the sports.
So should we start a GoFundMe page?
It's something that we're going to have to look at some additional revenue. There's no lie about that. It's just we have limited opportunities to generate traditional revenue through attendance. So we're going to have to try to help some. Mr. Cipollone has been very good to work with on this. We're trying to reduce our expenditures this year to just the necessary items. If we don't need to buy a new piece of equipment this year, we probably won't buy it because we are trying to constrict those costs, but we still do have a significant amount of cost that's just involved in running the program. The next one I have is the 4F. It's for our annual resolution for school fees. The district doesn't charge blanket fees. The district doesn't charge a blanket amount of, $100 per kid for, various fees. We break down the fees. Our academic services department, Mrs. Maxwell and Mrs. Musselman, are very good about going over these with our principals. I apologize. And we work through those fees only to charge the actual consumables that our students will be using for the school year. Mrs. Granat brought up an excellent point. I appreciate you bringing this up regarding virtual students. So the district will not charge virtual students for fees for physical materials that they would not acquire. So, and I'll define that a little bit. We're going to have some subscriptions that are involved, online subscriptions. That would be a fee for both in-person or online. And a workbook is a physical piece that a student would receive. That would be a fee for both in-person or online. But an example might be an art fee, where we have a student who's online only and not partaking in the physical class where they might be doing clay or something of that nature. We're not going to pass that fee along. We're not charging fees just to charge fees.
Okay.
It's for what they're actually utilizing in their class. So for those virtual students who aren't utilizing some of those physical materials, we'll work with principals and secretaries to make sure those aren't assessed. Ultimately, they'll be waived in their power school. Moving on to 5G, this is our pay to participate fees. Last year, we had looked at changing our pay to participate fee structure, possibly, most likely increasing the fees as to match other districts around. Due to the pandemic, due to what's going on with in our world right now, and consulting with Mr. Cipollone, we're asking that the board not make any changes at this time to pay to participate. We will continue to look to make those changes in the future, but with the uncertainty that's around the world that we're in right now, I would ask the board to approve. So the information that's in front of the board there has been updated for date and some name changes, but there have been no changes to any of the fee structure that's in the pay to participate information. We have 4F. This is an MOU with OPSI. So OPSI has been very good to work with, and it's a difficult situation. OPSI is in a position that they understand and they want to work with the district. That we may, hopefully we don't have to do this, and right now we're certainly trending in the right direction. But if we would have to go to an online-only environment later in the year due to the pandemic, okay, they understand that a number of the positions that they hold aren't conducive to an online environment. Bus drivers obviously are very physically oriented, driving the bus around. So this is a MOU that's been passed by OPSI that would give the board flexibility in doing a furlough. So this would allow us to furlough the employees. Again, our goal would be for the shortest amount of time possible. But when we're in an online-only environment, It would allow us to furlough some of those employees that we otherwise don't have an assignment for because they're in a physical job type of nature that we would need only when we're in our buildings. So we've talked about this a little bit, prior, so I'm asking the board, it has been passed by OPC, and I'm asking the board to approve this. And I believe that's all of my items that I have.
Okay.
I do like to do the budget separate, so if we could do A for A, and for B, then we can either combine all the rest, or sometimes I like to do MOU separately. So we can break that out separately.
Is there a motion to approve treasurer's recommendation for A?
So move.
Second.
Discussion? Roll call?
Stoll,
Yes.
Fanouken,
Yes.
Kraft,
Yes.
Lizinski,
yes,
Kurnat.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Is there a motion to approve treasurer's recommendation for B?
so moved,
Second.
Discussion? Roll call?
Lizinski,
yes,
Fanouken,
Yes.
Kraft,
Yes.
Kurnat,
Yes.
Stoll.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Is there a motion to approve treasurer's recommendations for C, D, E, F, and G?
So moved.
second,
Discussion?
I'm glad pay to participate is being reviewed. And it makes sense to not make any changes for this year.
It's just a difficult year for our athletes, for our coaches, for Mr. Cicerone, so I think it's the right move for this year.
Yeah.
Further discussion? Roll call?
Fanouken,
Yes.
Lizinski,
yes,
Kraft,
Yes.
Kurnat,
Yes.
Stoll.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Is there a motion to approve treasurer's recommendation for H?
So moved?
Second.
Discussion?
Like everyone here, I'm sure we would appreciate everything that OPC has done to work collaboratively with the administration in these really unprecedented times, and appreciate their members understanding this and voting for the resolution in the MOU. So much appreciation to them.
Further discussion?
I just want to echo John's comments. We appreciate it.
Roll call?
Kurnat,
Yes.
Fanouken,
Yes.
Kraft,
Yes.
Lizinski,
yes,
Stoll.
Yes.
Motion carries.
At this time, we'll move on to the superintendent's recommendation.
Sure. So to start off, 5A, we have generous donations to the Westlake City Schools. Suzanne Hoffman donated $100 to the class of 2021 at Westlake High School. Rashmi and Yikas Jain donated $1,000 to the science department at Westlake High School. The Power of More, that's our Chamber of Commerce, donated 250 face shields to us. And Kathy actually accepted those on our behalf, and Dave's going to get them. Did you get them yet from? Okay, they're over at the city, and we're picking them up. The William Corley Foundation of the Westlake Bay Village Rotary donated $1,000 to the Circle of Friends at Westlake High School. So we thank everybody for those donations. We have resolutions. So the next one is approval of an employment of a licensed staff member. This is Lori Demchek. She's already an employee, and what we're doing is we're increasing her time because we have another person who's out. So we're just increasing what she's doing with us in order to fill some needs that we have. Then we have a 5C resolution to approve the employment of a classified member, Shannon Shelley, special ed assistant at Westlake Elementary School. We are increasing the number of aides we're going to have in general and in special ed as well, due to some of the increased needs of teaching virtual classrooms, or even coverage, if somebody's out, to be able to cover a classroom or a location. And with that being said, we did have some people on that were reduced, and this employee was one of those who was reduced from a teacher assistant position, and we are recalling her because of that need. Resolution to approve a facilitator of resident educator program, and this is Hilaria Patriak, who's going to be working with Joe Fudali in the band program. And then supplemental contracts are D-Minette's advisor, fall weight room coordinator, debonair advisor, 7th grade football coach, as well as high school assistant coach. Classified substitutes, we're getting some more of them on staff. Resolution to approve contracts and purchase services. I believe Stephanie probably covered most of these, if not all of them, in her report. So you should be familiar with those. And the last one is one that we did just add today. Mr. Kosifar sent this to us earlier, and we failed to get it on the board agenda. But it is something, we need the food service agreement so that we can have Kay Cook. And her name is Kay Cook. She's not Kay who's a cook. Her name really is Kay Cook. She does a really, really, really good job for us, and this is the contract, so we're able to utilize her. There is a slight increase in the hourly rate of $3 per hour, but other than that, the contract is the same. Those are the items that I have. I don't see any reason why we couldn't do 5A on its own and B through I, if that's okay with everybody else.
Is there a motion to approve superintendent's recommendation 5A?
So moved.
Second?
Discussion? We always want to say thank you. Thank you to all who contribute many things to Westlake City Schools. Thank you for these donations. I know that they'll be put to great use, so thank you. Further discussion? Roll call?
Stoll,
Yes.
Fanukin,
Yes.
Kraft,
Yes.
Zinsky,
Yes,
Kieran.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Is there a motion to approve superintendent's recommendations 5B through 5I?
So moved?
Second?
Discussion?
the facility, on E, the facilitator, is that the mentoring where they're, okay, it's just a different name.
I know as a part of this, we're reminded of the extraordinary work of your entire staff. That includes the folks that joined us today, Mr. Maver, Mr. Kosovar, Mrs. Musselman, Dr. Morgan, also Mrs. Maxwell. Just your reports, their detail, all of the work that you do, you and the entire staff, just tremendous, so thank you.
And Dr. Pete over there, too.
And Mr. Zagray, absolutely. Thank you, thank you. Thank you.
He's just not in the vision right
Exactly.
here. It's easier to
Hiding
look
behind
across the
us
board.
over there.
I forget he's there sometimes, but he's the man behind, the curtain, so he makes it work, so thank you. Further discussion? Roll call?
Kieran,
Yes?
Fanukin,
Yes.
Kraft,
Yes.
Zinsky,
Yes,
Stoll.
Yes.
Motion carries.
At this time, we'll have board comments. Anything the board would like to share at this time, board members?
Yes, I'd like to give another shout out to our teachers. I was at an event yesterday in Strongsville, and some of my relatives, and they have kids that they've chosen to go virtually. And I found out that when we were talking last week about the other schools that have gotten the third party, I don't know what you call it, the remote learning.
Learning platform.
Like a platform.
Yeah,
or
like,
something, yeah.
she said Strongsville. I mean, I'm just assuming everybody's teachers are doing their own thing, and they aren't. She said Strongsville is paying
this outside company, and it's costing over $1 million to do it. And their teachers aren't even monitoring or, you know, the program or anything. So when I told her that our teachers are doing it on their own and how hard they're working, she was really surprised. So just how appreciative we are to the staff and everybody that's involved with the remote learning, because I know it's a lot of hard work that they've put in. So thanks to
Right on.
all our staff.
I'll second that. I think for my two high schoolers, they've embraced the block schedule and enjoy it. And they've had nothing but positive. And if there was something negative, trust me, they would tell me. So again, I do appreciate everything that's happening with the support and the teachers and everything.
And I really need to agree with how great the teachers have been doing with the virtual learning. You know, my daughter's been 100% virtual, and though even people I've talked to whose kids are in hybrid, everybody's been very impressed. Have there been some technology hiccups? Yes. Something happened at LBMS with a number of tech not working for the last class of the day. But they worked through it, and they, you know, got their assignments done, and there was stuff posted already, so, but it worked out. So.
I would say that the quality of education is where it should be expected, being Westlake. And the technology, you're always going to have issues. So I'm very pleased. As Mr. Hagen would say, progress, not perfection, and we've made a lot of progress since last spring. So kudos to you and your team.
So one of the things that I'll point out is it's nice to hear all those, but when we talk to our teachers, they'll say, we're not where we usually are. I mean, they're still pushing, and I think it was Amanda made that comment after going through the elementary school, is some of our teachers are so hard on themselves and have such high expectations that while it's going, they want to do it.
And that's good. That's a sense of pride.
They're good.
Pride and ownership that they're taking in their jobs, and that's fantastic.
I know they're exhausted at the end of the day.
Yes, they are.
Right. Exhausted, maybe stressed out. We certainly don't want to add to that stress in any way. Board would like to visit the schools, and when it's appropriate to do so, we want to do that, and really make all certain that they know that they're appreciated. We know they're working very, very hard, so we'd like to do that sometime soon. Further comments? All right, is there a motion to adjourn to executive session to discuss the preparing for, conducting, or reviewing negotiations or bargaining sessions with employees?
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? Roll call?
Enter into executive session at 6:48 PM. Fanouken,
Yes.
Stoll,
Yes.
Kraft,
Yes.
Kaczynski,
Yes.
here not.
Yes.
The board will move into executive session. The board won't take action in executive, but we do plan on taking action once we exit executive session. Where would you like to do this?
Library?
Just-
Mr. President, we came out of executive session at 7:11 PM, and we are back in regular session.
All right, fantastic. At this time, we're on agenda item 8. Board item 8A is the resolution to approve the MOU with WTA. Is there a motion to approve board item 8A?
So moved.
Second?
Discussion.
I would just like to again thank the WTA, just like with OPSI, as to their working with us to make sure that we can provide a very high-quality educational experience to our students, one that is expected, being here in Westlake. And Mr. McMorrow, being the WTA president, appreciate everything he has done to help lead this to a very positive conclusion. And I'm looking forward to voting yes on it.
And I want to thank Mr. Hopkins and Dr. Goggin for all the time spent working on this.
Further discussion? Roll call?
Fanouken,
Yes.
Stoll,
Yes.
Kraft,
Yes.
Kaczynski,
Yes.
here not.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Board item 8B, the first reading of policies.
So, yeah, we did, as you had a chance to review, those are updated graduation policies, has some changes in there, nothing that reflects too drastic from what we've had before, but some clarifications done by Mr. Wilson and Mrs. Maxwell, and I'll let you go through it.
Fantastic, thank you. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second?
Discussion? Roll call?
To adjourn at 7:16 PM. Fanouken,
Yes.
here not.
Yes.
Kraft,
Yes,
Kaczynski,
Yes.
Stoll.
Yes.
Motion carries.
we are adjourned.